All right, take it away.
Good morning, folks. My name is Eric Weltman, and I'm a Brooklyn-based senior organizer with Food and Water Watch. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to make some preliminary remarks and then introduce our incredible lineup of amazing elected officials and advocates who will be speaking. Folks, on Friday, the Hochul administration announced a double betrayal of New Yorkers: approval of the Williams-Nessie frack gas pipeline and a dirty deal to allow Greenwich to continue burning fracked gas for Bitcoin mining. The Williams-Nessie pipeline, with a staggering price tag of $3.2 billion, had previously been rejected by the state 3 times because the science showed it threatens water quality. And that same day, Hochul gave an air permit to Greenwich Generation, the climate wrecking crypto mine in the Finger Lakes, that not only lost its air permit because it violates our climate law, but lost several appeals after that. And then, yesterday, Governor Hochul put the nail in the coffin when she agreed to delay the all electric building law, which she signed in 2023, landmark legislation phasing out gas hookups in new buildings and making our homes cleaner, healthier, and more affordable to power. All three decisions by Hochul strike a blow against the needs and interests of New Yorkers for affordable energy, for clean air and safe water, and for a livable climate. New Yorkers will pay a terrible price for Hochul's betrayal of our needs and interests: higher energy bills, dirty water, polluted air, and a more dangerous climate. Hochul's betrayal further locks New York into a costly reliance on dirty fossil fuels, promoting fracking while threatening our health, our communities, and our environment. And Hochul's dangerous and costly decisions were a painful blow to democracy and respect for the rule of law in New York. Just as our nation needs no king, New York doesn't want or need a queen. In crumpling under Donald Trump's bullying over the pipeline, embracing Trump's fossil fuel and crypto agenda, and delaying the all electric building law, Hochul has shown a clear willingness to betray the needs of New Yorkers for the interests of powerful corporations and to sacrifice respect for the rule of law to appease the tyrant in the White House. In conclusion, if I were writing a headline for this story, it would be this: Hochul to New York, drop dead. It's now my pleasure to introduce an incredible champion, Assembly Member Emily Gallagher.
Good morning, everyone. It is a sad day for New York State. I cannot stop thinking about how many years have been spent on research, scientific, economic, global best practices, years of state taxpayer money, years of grant money and research and time and expertise, all to be thrown in the garbage because of fear mongering. This bill, all three of these environmental movement pieces that we've been working on, they are known to help not only the bottom line for New Yorkers, making things more cost effective, but it is ending the externality of the gas and oil industry. We have been giving gas and oil our state money to make it appear cheaper, to make it appear as if it is a cheap, inexpensive, and great community option. But we know that the externality of oil and gas is destroying our state, destroying our country, and destroying the globe. And we have examples in other countries and in other states of these very practices that we have written into law and passed as law and signed as law, that they work. And it is tragic to know that we have an executive who is willing to do things that are not within her power, to throw away the will of the people, because of fear mongering and because of the oil and gas industry's bottom line. They have been polluting not just our earth, but they've been polluting our airways and our community media with lies about what was going to happen as soon as this was enacted. It's all false. We did our research. We believe in science. We believe in study and research. So the fact that this is all being thrown away out of fear mongering is disgusting. And I really hope that I've been hoping that the lessons of congestion pricing in New York City would have sent a message that the fear mongering is wrong, that these solutions work. When they work in another place, they work here. We are not exceptional. And I'm not saying that in a positive way. It seems that New York State thinks that it is exceptional in a negative way, that things that have worked all around the world and has worked in other countries, worked in other states, won't work here. And the only reason we seem to think that is because the oil and gas industry is telling us to think that. It's time that we overcome this propaganda and the buyouts of my colleagues to carry lies, to carry disinformation for executives' bottom line over our well being overall. That's what I have to say right now, but I have a lot more to say in general. And I hope that the governor will come to her senses and see that she is destroying her credibility and she is destroying our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gallagher. It's now my honor to introduce another tremendous advocate, Assemblymember Sarah Hannah Shrestha.
Hello, sorry, I didn't realize I was speaking. Sarah Hannah Shrestha, Assembly Member from Mid-Hudson Valley. I am really, really concerned because it seems like now is the moment where we need to prove to ourselves that we are ready to respond to an exceptional crisis that is happening both in our democracy as well as all of the basic aspects of what it means for people to have well-being. And my concern is that it doesn't feel like the person who is leading the state has things under control. And that is a terrifying thing to realize at this time, because we are not talking just about not standing up to Trump on climate, which, is not an optional goal, as Assemblymember Gallagher alluded to. These are goals dictated by science. These are goals dictated by things that are already happening in the world. To hear that it takes, it costs us so much more money now to fix potholes because the temperature keeps swinging from high to low. This is just a very small example of the layers of impacts we're going to feel, not just on, having a nice view, having nice weather, but really we're talking about a disruption to our economy if we don't act in the same way the pandemic disrupted our economy. Not having any sense of things that seem normal, that seem reliable. And we're talking about people getting sicker if we don't act. We're talking about the electricity bills and the utility bills getting higher. People are already pretty fed up with having to guess how much their utility bill is going to cost them every month, and having to decide whether they're going to pay rent or they're going to pay childcare. And this is not the situation that a New Yorker should be in, considering how much brain power and financial power and advocacy power that exists in this state. There are so many people working hard to show what the solution is, and very few people willing to act on it. And that is the crisis that we are at right now. We need to understand that when we are allowing new buildings, new homes to commit to a gas infrastructure, we are forever putting ratepayers on the hook to pay for that infrastructure. And ratepayers are not happy about their utility bills if we want to talk about affordability. So it also feels like Why keep saying this word affordability if we are going to completely restructure our energy sector to serve the interests of an AI bubble, of crypto mining, of corporations that are going around trying to claim all of these green credits to themselves when it really means nothing. None of the benefits are coming back to people. And now is the moment where we need desperately somebody who can say positively, not neutrally, positively, we don't need a new pipeline. We don't need to mine cryptocurrency. And we absolutely need to move towards electricity. I was really shocked to learn that China this year added 200 gigawatts of new solar, and United States added only 19 gigawatts of new solar. So it does seem like, what makes us so different that we cannot do all these things that are possible elsewhere? And New York should be leading. So I am very disappointed that we are even second guessing things that we already worked on, things that we already won in terms of squashing the misinformation and the money that was spent on spreading this misinformation. And the utilities are absolutely going around saying their bills are increasing because of the state's climate goals. And we are letting people believe that that is the case instead of proving the opposite. So I do hope congestion pricing was a lesson because everybody loves it now. And there was a brief moment when the governor thought that this was going to hurt everybody's pockets, and that turned out to be true. So we should really listen to the people who have been committing their time to the right ideas and the right solution.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I would like to introduce Assemblymember Farah Souffrant Forrest.
Sorry, press the wrong button.
Oh, wonderful. Glad to hear.
Hi, everyone. My name is Farah Souffrant Forrest. Hello. I will say that this right now is a terrible moment for us as New Yorkers because we must not only mourn the increasing climate crisis that we have, not only in New York State, but across the world, but we must also mourn the loss of a leadership because when we have a governor that's turning back the defining moments in our state where we not once but twice but three times stood up for New Yorkers, for the future, for our children, our children's children. We have had a leadership, an executive roll it back. And so this week has been a disaster for climate progress in New York. Our governor rolled back years of progress by not only approving the NESE Williams pipeline, allowing crypto mining to continue to pollute our air, and now all electric buildings act. What's up with that? What kind of message does it send to New Yorkers? Let me tell you, when I voted for all electric bill, I thought people like my own mother would start yelling at me because I'm trying to take away her gas. But guess what? She likes the induction stove because that's the one that she decided to put in her house by choice in Haiti. So there's no protest. No one's picketing in front of my building. They're not picketing the buildings of my colleagues either, because we made a common sense choice for the people of New York. But if we have a governor that turns back, what does this say? It says that she doesn't care about the environment. She doesn't care about science, and she will cave to the slightest pushback from the fossil fuel goons. So I'm proud to stand with my assembly member, Emily Gallagher, as she charged away in the past to make sure all electric passed. And I will stand with her and all of my climate buddies in the assembly, in the Senate, to make sure we correct this leadership. We're going to right this ship together. We're going to continue to remind Kathy Hochul that the same constituencies that vote for us are the same ones that she's going to hope to support her next year, June. And so I will stand with the climate advocates in my district and with others to continue to fight back against these dangerous, polluting decisions from our governor. I hope she understands that the clean air that she gets to breathe in the mansion has to be clean for everybody else too. Pollution isn't selective. And so while we may be selective on our future leadership, okay, we cannot be selective on the future of our climate. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblymember, for those rousing words. It's now my honor to introduce another tremendous ally, Assemblymember Al Sturpey.
Thank you. Al Sturpey from outside of Syracuse, New York. It's difficult, to express my level of disappointment with the governor's most recent decision to pause the All Electric Buildings Act. I had a private meeting with the governor late this summer, and she asked me what's on my mind. And I said, in the context of the fact that Micron is locating in my district, and that development will utilize as much energy as two separate states. So I was concerned about energy, and I said, the one thing we really have to do is get control of these data centers and these crypto mines through regulations. A. B, we have to make sure if they're going to open up, they pay for the infrastructure that's needed and that it's non-polluting. And she said that, she understood and everything, but obviously she didn't take enough notes in that meeting to understand that, we shouldn't be having regular ratepayers pay for all the new constructions that's needed for all these crypto mines. And when people talk about jobs and everything, we don't have a lack of jobs. We have a lack of workers in our region. We have tens of thousands more job openings than we have workers. So we don't need crypto mines that employ 4 people, just making sure that the servers don't blow out, and when they do, throw them in the landfill. All these different programs that she's paused, between congestion pricing, cap and invest, repealing the 100-foot rule, polluters pay, and now all electric buildings. The only one that she's allowed to go through was eventually congestion pricing, which has been a huge success. That should be telling us something, but no one seems to be listening. And I feel bad for my colleagues who have decided that because of the upcoming election, they're so afraid that they don't want to speak out about this. They want to make sure that gas is plentiful and everybody's getting it. And they want to blame electrification, like the last speaker said, for the increase in utilities. But the fact that we spent $4 billion repairing old gas lines, leaky gas lines over the last 2 years, and $400 million expanding the gas infrastructure, that's the reason why your rates are going up. If we didn't have to do both things, trying to build out electrification and continuing to do all this gas, it wouldn't be as expensive. But nobody seems to be listening. And the fact that the all-electric buildings just affects new buildings. There's 5 million residential buildings in the state. And if you add 10,000 single-family homes and 1,000 multiple building dwellings, that's like 0.2% increase, which the grid can absolutely handle. The fact they're saying it can't is based on very flawed information. And I'm sure we're going to have some experts who are going to explain all this to us later. But I guess I have to say the most important thing for my colleagues who oppose the all-electric building. It's been said that carbon emissions are scheduled to increase by 1.2% this year. What that means is that we are going to reach the tipping point of 1.5 degrees within 4 years now. And what does that mean? We're talking about catastrophic weather events, as if the floods in Texas weren't catastrophic, as if the fires in Canada and California weren't catastrophic, floods all over the world aren't catastrophic. Now we're really going to have catastrophic events in 4 years. So for people who continue to say, I share the long-term goal of decarbonization, there is no long-term anymore. We're there. We've got to do something now. So I hope somebody listens to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And it's now my honor to introduce Assemblymember Marcela Martinez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you for this amazing work, Assembly Gallagher. I too am really disappointed with the governor. New York is a place to lead. We need to show the rest of the world what is possible, and taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back is not the way to do it. Especially where we know that folks are suffering. There's challenges for affordability. This is one of the big issues that my office deals with every year. We're going into heat season, and that little check that folks get is certainly not enough. We're talking about putting a cap on future buildings, right? I don't see what the issue and the problem is, except for possibly some donors. And for as much as elected officials want to say that donations don't influence them, what we see is very different. So if the governor wants to show that she is willing to put people before profits, I think this is a good way of saying that not only are we going to make sure we're stopping any future pollution, but that we're really taking the steps necessary to be able to move forward and really show that New York can be leaders. I just want to also share, things that my colleagues have already said, right? This is going to save money for various families, but, let's talk particularly about this is saving money through every region of the state, with the biggest savings occurring in the coldest and most rural parts of the state, where families have been gouged by soaring energy prices. Making all new construction fossil free creates net jobs and would help make New York State a leader in the growing clean energy economy. And we know that oil and gas industry wants to delay as long as possible, so they continue lobbying, misleading, and trying to stoke a culture of war. And so it is our responsibility to continue to have these conversations, to continue to talk out about the issues, ensure that our constituents understand what's on the line, and we are all ready to fight and defend this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And now another tremendous champion, Assemblymember Dana Levenberg.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks so much to Food and Water Watch and all the other advocates and wonderful groups that have been fighting so hard. I mean, we have been fighting so hard, and we have been fighting an uphill battle for something that is a no-brainer. It's ridiculous. And we've been watching in horror as our country's president and his enablers at the federal level raise household energy costs and take us so far backwards, so fast, away from climate action and away from everything else that we need to build a brighter future. Now is the time to stand up and fight for what we know is right, for what science tells us is right. We should be rejecting the build out of dirty fossil fuel energy. We should be rejecting the build out of cryptocurrency mining, also dirty, and supporting our enacted all electric buildings law, and supporting and signing into law the rollback of the 100-foot rule. That's something else that we need the governor to do. We need to actually be investing in the clean energy future, which we know actually will provide jobs, more jobs for people in an industry that has a future versus one that's going to be actually contaminate our entire planet, our waterways, our air that we breathe, everything that we do from every single day. It just doesn't make sense. The all electric buildings law is forward-looking legislation that makes environmental and economic sense. particularly when you consider the higher cost of natural gas delivery versus electricity. And I've just been an intervener on the Con Ed rate case, and I know some of my other colleagues have also, and we're really seeing how big money plays out and how important that return on investment is for investors, and watching rich get richer on the backs of ratepayers. It isn't right. The all-electric buildings, all electric buildings in general are less expensive to build and maintain. This is, again, forward thinking. As my colleagues have mentioned, this isn't actually asking for retrofitting. It's saying when you build new buildings, just build them right, build them thoughtfully, build them sustainably. And then we know that they're easier to maintain and less expensive to maintain than their gas powered counterparts. So what are we, again, it's a no brainer. Why should we abandon a plan to make new housing more affordable, which we all know is supremely important right now, and especially when it doesn't impact our current housing stock? It's not the time to succumb to industry propaganda. Again, as my colleagues have mentioned, let's push forward toward proven solutions based on science for our affordability and climate crises. Let's do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member, and thank you for acknowledging that Governor Hochul needs to sign the 100-foot rule into law. Now I'd like to introduce another wonderful Assembly Member ally, Assembly Member Gabriela Romero.
Thanks, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. So I'm Gabriela Romero, proud to represent Albany, Guildland, and New Scotland in upstate New York. And I want to start just by saying something really simple. Just New Yorkers deserve leadership that protects both our planet and our pocketbooks. And it's really obvious now that the governor is obviously planning to do neither. This bill was a promise that New York would stop locking families into expensive, polluting fossil fuel systems and start building for the future. But delaying this law is a total betrayal of that promise. It means higher energy bills for working families, continued dependence on fossil fuel markets, and a more climate pollution concept when our state just really can't afford it. In my district, the 109th Assembly District, I hear from residents all the time, as people have said before, that are struggling to pay their utility bills. And they want solutions that'll make their homes more efficient, that'll make the air cleaner, not more subsidies for gas pipelines or crypto plants. And they know that when we invest in clean, all-electric buildings and when we create good paying union jobs, we also reduce asthma and pollution in our communities. And that will be, if we invest in this bill, will lower costs over time. People can be patient about that. So I'm really proud to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm really proud to be joining my colleagues in this movement to call on the governor to reverse this delay. It's embarrassing, honestly, that she's done this when it's a massive and positive investment and that we're going backwards. She's been so bad on climate coming on the back of this pipeline. And so I want to stand with everyday New Yorkers that want something positive for the environment. We need a climate win. We don't want to stand with fossil fuel executives. I want to invest in the future, not in fracked gas. I want to keep my word on our climate goals, not only for the future of New York State, but for our children, for our communities, and for our planet. That shouldn't be so crazy. And so I'm here obviously calling on the governor to reverse this, but also to keep her promise to our CLCPA goals and to our planet. So thanks for having me. And I hope that the governor does the right thing.
Thank you, Assembly Member. And now it's my tremendous honor to introduce another ally, just got elected to the City Council, Assembly Member Harvey Epstein.
Thank you, Eric. And it's always good going after Gabriella. So this 8 years in the assembly fighting for our climate goals and climate justice, and to see these kind of reversals on the governor positions, the pipeline, this is really deeply troubling to me. And the reality is we live in a world where there's a climate crisis. We know it. We know that there's a problem. We know that we have solutions, and we know we need to activate those solutions. the all-electric building bill, and want to applaud Emily Gallagher for her leadership on this. It was a huge effort on all our parts to make sure that this moved forward. And to see things like this happen really undermines what we're doing in the legislature. Why would we negotiate anything with the governor if 2 years later she's going to like roll all these provisions back? Why are we going to fight? What are we going to fight for this year? Why we even why fought hard for the CLCPA and to make sure we had a real climate plan. If we're not going to make sure those things are moving forward with all electric buses, all electric buildings, like we have real goals here and a commitment to a environmental justice world. And if we can't make that happen, I don't know what we're fighting for. I'm deeply committed to making sure we go forward. I implore the governor to reverse her stance. I'll stand with my state colleagues here to do what we can. As I move to this city seat, I will work with our city colleagues to support whatever we need to do in Albany, make sure this happens. This is a critical moment in our position in New York. We need to stand here and say we care deeply about environmental justice. And it's up to all of us to push back against the governor if she's trying to reduce our commitment and make sure that we have a plan that moves forward that we all live up to. Our children, our grandchildren all depend on it. And we need to make sure this happens. I stand with you every day and we'll fight to ensure we have a climate justice world. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And now it's my tremendous honor to introduce my former city council member and current controller, Brad Lender.
Thanks very much, Eric. Thank you, Assemblymember Gallagher, for getting us all on here. And thanks to all of the elected officials and advocates. This is such a critical moment for us to raise our voices and push back. We were just had this, the Somos convening in San Juan, where you feel like Democrats are all coming together to fight for the things we care about, to fight for a more affordable city, to have a party that stands up and fights back against Donald Trump. Unfortunately, right as kind of on the end of that, Governor Hochul, seems to be saying that climate and environmental justice space is what's going to be sacrificed, and we can't possibly allow that to happen. So, many of us were very disappointed with the Williams Pipeline approval by New York State DEC. But then I guess I thought, at least I hope that would be it, and then to see that this all electric buildings law, that I just want to give big props to all the state legislatures. That was a big fight, let's not take that for granted. It wasn't an easy thing, but everyone ultimately got clear. Okay, we are moving in the right direction here. We can move toward renewable energy. We can have all electric buildings, and this is a reasonable timeline. Let's not forget there already was a lot of compromise, right? The advocates originally wanted to move even more quickly. This bill passed in such strong fashion thanks to that organizing. The governor signed it, and now to have it be walked back and delayed, really to serve no other interest than fossil fuel and building owners who want to burn fossil fuel interests, is deeply disappointing. And look, we want broad coalitional unity on affordability. We want broad coalitional unity on standing up to Donald Trump. And we need broad coalitional unity on climate and environmental justice, even though it sometimes recedes from the front pages of the newspapers. It remains an existential fight of our time. We will either succeed in making the climate transition together, in decarbonizing our grid, in converting our buildings, which, as I'm sure has been said, in New York City are 70% of our emissions, and around the state, a large part as well. Or we will leave our kids a planet increasingly wrecked by rising temperatures and seas. It will cost us more money in the long run if we don't do the things that we can and must do now. So I'm joining everyone here in calling on the governor to reverse this decision, to implement the all-electric buildings law without delay, and to move New York State forward to the climate future that we all need and deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. And now I'd like to introduce another tremendous ally in the Assembly, Assemblymember Shimsky. Assembly member, if you are speaking, we cannot hear you. All right, I do want to acknowledge that Assembly Member Shimsky is with us. We also have Assembly Member Valdez. I want to acknowledge her. And unfortunately, she had to leave, but we had Senator Salazar with us. Assembly Member Shimsky, are you off mute?
I am on.
Awesome. The floor is yours.
Okay. I just want to point out that the way we are going to move forward with our people properly is following the science. The governor's actually been pretty good about following the science on things like immunizations, cell phones in schools, and so on. The science here is incontrovertible. And what we are starting to face and what we will continue to face in terms of climate, in terms of various public health maladies, is beyond question. And we cannot continue to build out new natural gas infrastructure, because what's going to happen is that's going to commit us to using that infrastructure for the lifetime of the project, which in many cases will be many decades. So I do hope the governor will reconsider and sit down with hopefully a group of stakeholders and figure out how we do get to the promised land on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member. And before I introduce our roster of advocates and experts, again, I want to acknowledge all the elected officials, including Senator Salazar, who had to jump, as well as Assembly Member Valdez. All right. So first off, I would like to introduce Juan Pablo Velez, Executive Director of Switchbox.
Good morning, everybody.
morning.
Apologies for my voice. My toddler gave me his RSV. So Switchbox is a think tank that runs the numbers on state energy policies. And we've published 2 reports on the AEBA in the past month. The first was on affordability, and the second was on grid reliability. Now, those opposed to the law have claimed in the press that these homes will be more expensive to live in and that the grid can't handle all electric new construction. And they've been quoted extensively, but without any evidence behind these claims. So we looked at the data, and it turns out the reality is more or less the opposite. So let's talk about affordability first. As a reminder, the all-electric building law only affects new construction. So what we wanted to know is it cheaper to live in a new all-electric single-family home versus a fossil-fueled one? And the answer is basically yes. Families moving into an all-electric single-family home would save over $1,000 a year. And that's a statewide average. And by savings here, we mean how much money is actually leaving your pocket. So it's how much you're paying per year on your mortgage and your energy bills together. What does that look like in a fossil fuel building versus an all-electric one? And what's the difference? The difference is over $1,000 a year on average. And in rural areas which use propane, the savings are even higher. It's over $2,600 per year. So over 10 years, that's, you do the math, almost more than $25,000. It's curious that the Builders Association neglects to mention these sorts of operating costs when they talk about how electric is going to make housing new more expensive, which isn't even true, by the way. Heat pumps have come down in price, so the upfront costs are actually pretty comparable these days. And that's before you look at the operating costs for things like propane. Okay, but what about the impact on the grid? So in a second report that we just released this morning, we looked at that question. You are probably all aware that the New York ISO, which runs New York's grid, recently released their short-term reliability report. In that report, they flag a handful of local grid reliability risks, which I'm happy to go into since nobody seems to have read the report, but all of which have to do with how the grid would respond to heat waves during the summer. Nearly all these risks are being addressed already, but that's completely beside the point, because for all electric new construction, to affect the grid's reliability, it would need to make that summer peak worse. It would need to add basically more air conditioning to the grid. But it turns out that it won't, because nearly all new buildings already have air conditioning. This is a very important point. Like, we are already building almost every building with new air conditioning. And so what the ABL would actually do is it would replace fossil fuel heating with heat pumps. And that means that the impact of the law would be new electricity use in the winter. In the winter, the grid is way underused and has spare capacity. In fact, the winter peak last winter was 25% less than the peak this summer, 25%. And having a lot more electricity use, using up that spare capacity, actually puts downward pressure on rates because you have more folks paying into the system. So it helps affordability actually on that front as well, and not just in terms of the construction and operating costs. Of course, these things can be tricky to figure out if you don't look at the data, but there you have it, and happy to talk about how we did the studies, and I'll send links around. And so thanks so much.
Thank you, Juan. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ian Shapiro, who is a Syracuse University professor of practice in mechanical and aerospace engineering.
Thank you so much, Eric. Again, my name is Ian Shapiro, and I'm a professor at Syracuse University. I'm speaking today not on behalf of the university, but as an individual. I have over 40 years of experience in research with heat pumps and with fossil fuel systems. I'm the author of 2 books on building science, many papers on heat pumps and fossil fuel systems, and I'm currently leading 5 heat pump research projects, including one for the Department of Energy. I've also designed many fossil fuel heating systems and done research on them. In Ithaca, where we have been installing heat pumps for many years, we've seen thousands of heat pumps installed in all kinds of buildings, single family, multifamily, commercial, and industrial, for over 10 years. Most of the new construction in Ithaca is all electric already. After inspecting thousands of heat pumps, not only in Ithaca, but across New York City and upstate for the state, I share the same experience as many homeowners and developers who've seen the benefits firsthand. The decision to delay the All-Electric Buildings Act flies in the face of data and real-life experience. The allegations that heat pumps don't provide comfort at cold temperatures defy the laws of physics. Last winter, when temperatures dropped as low as -13 Fahrenheit, in New York's coldest climate zone, a rural house that I'm monitoring was able to maintain a comfortable 70 degrees by using a heat pump without any backup heat. That's what the all-electric buildings law can accomplish. Beyond the fact that the switch to all-electric can heat the coldest homes with ease, it can do so affordably. I recently contributed data for a New York City survey showing that heat pumps lowered consumers' energy bills in every building where they replaced fossil fuels. Heat pumps will also lower construction costs for developers and owners and maintenance costs for owners because of their relatively simple construction related compared to fossil fuel systems. A heat pump which heats and cools is one piece of equipment. Fossil fuel and air conditioning is 2. There's no way that the construction cost will not be lower, housing will be more affordable. Just a few weeks ago, a gas boiler in the Bronx exploded at a NYCHA housing complex. All electric buildings are a much safer option that can protect New Yorkers, even in the most extreme weather, including heat waves, when heat-related deaths tragically surge. Tens of thousands of deaths in Europe due to heat waves in recent years. For new buildings, heat pumps would actually eliminate deaths from gas fires, explosions, and carbon monoxide poisoning. As of January 1st, with this law, there will be no deaths from these things. Without it, there will be attributable deaths. We will know which deaths were caused by the law not passing. Data shows that in summer months, this is my data, heat pumps can reduce the usual electric demand because they are more energy efficient than traditional air conditioners. This means that with the all-electric building law, new buildings will demand less energy during the summer when the grid experiences the highest demand. And as Juan Pablo pointed out, we don't use all the electric that we could produce in the winter. Our research also shows that the peak demand that will be added with heat pumps may well be lower than expected, but that's years, if not decades away. To close, heat pumps offer a cheaper, safer, and reliable path forward in all the ways that count. Come January, without the all-electric buildings law, New Yorkers will miss out on new buildings with heat pumps that would lower operating costs, lower construction costs, lower maintenance costs, enhance safety, eliminating fatalities, and offer New Yorkers reliable energy even during the most extreme weather. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce an incredible advocate and ally, Liz Moran, the New York's policy advocate for Earth Justice.
Thanks so much, Eric, and thank you all for being with us today. My name is Liz Moran. I'm the New York policy advocate with Earth Justice. And yesterday's announcement is yet another notch in Governor Hochul's belt towards her pursuing an unaffordable energy agenda for New Yorkers. Yesterday's announcement was a betrayal of the governor's own commitments to address energy affordability and reduce climate pollution for New Yorkers. It's a handout for the oil and gas industry. Now, I need to emphasize just how stark this is, because this comes after we'd been winning in the courts. In July, the United States District Court of the Northern District of New York ruled that New York has the power to enact the All-Electric Building Act. And that wasn't the only win. There were also wins for New York City and California. It's clear that the fossil fuel industry is going to ignore what actually will help consumers save money and protect their health. They are only interested in their own profits, which is why we need leadership from Governor Hochul, from our elected leaders in New York, to dispel misinformation from this industry and promote the policies and pursue and implement the policies that will actually save people money. So what's happened here is months ago, the plaintiffs, after losing, requested that the law nonetheless be blocked while they appeal. Just last month, the New York Attorney General filed a brief explaining both that there was no reason that a court should grant such a stay, and that blocking the law, even temporarily, would harm New Yorkers and cause irreparable damage to the state. No court agreed with the plaintiffs. The law wasn't blocked. Nothing changed. But yesterday, the state spontaneously gave up and gave the plaintiffs the same thing that it opposed last month. This is a deeply shameful action, and we absolutely need to change course moving forward if the governor is serious about true energy affordability for New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. And now another tremendous advocate, Lisa Marshall, Advocacy and Organizing Director for New Yorkers for Clean Power.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm not only the Advocacy and Organizing Director for New Yorkers for Clean Power, but it's my privilege to be the lead organizer for the Renewable Heat Now campaign. Our campaign is an exciting, forward-looking, positive, and joyful campaign. We have enjoyed so many wins with the help of all the people on this call and thousands of other New Yorkers who are looking forward to a cleaner and better future for their, and particularly with the focus on decarbonizing buildings. The reason we love to work on buildings is because not only is this helping with the climate crisis, but buildings that are decarbonized are healthier, safer, and more affordable to live in, and it's just kind of a no-brainer. So when we started our legislative campaign, we were excited to work on All Electric Building Act because this was just the low-hanging fruit, the no-brainer, the easy win, because all electric buildings are healthier, safer. They have all these benefits. They have air conditioning, which so many of us need now with the hotter summers. So this was just a thing that just seemed like the obvious choice. It was a joyful campaign. Thousands and thousands of people from across New York got involved. and including children, elders, people from low income, high income, the North Country, Buffalo, Long Island, every part of the state put their hearts and souls into this campaign to win. And I have to face them tonight on a call and tell them that after winning this in 2023, we have now had this setback, and it's just devastating. I want to tell a little personal story. It's a very exciting day for my family. My daughter Katie, who worked on the All Electric Building Act, and so did my other children, is buying her first house. She's 26 years old. She got a new job. She's moving, and she's buying a little house. She's closing on the house today, right now, during this meeting. And she found a little house that had heat pumps and a heat pump water heater and solar panels. And she's so excited because she doesn't make a high salary. She's an archivist. And she's going to be paying such a low utility bill that it's going to be cheaper for her to buy this home and live in it and maintain it than to rent in this college city where she's moving to. So I wanted to close with that, and also to just say, instead of being able to feel celebratory with my daughter and myself, my induction stove is going in this week. I'm very excited about that. I have to figure out how to face a devastated movement of New Yorkers, including elders, children, low-income scientists, and advocates who have been working so hard to make this future for our state brighter. And we're all very, very heartbroken and sad today. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your stories. It's now my honor to introduce another incredible advocate, Michael Hernandez, who's the New York Policy Director for Rewiring America.
Thank you, Eric. Michael Hernandez, and Rewiring America is a national non-for-profit focused on electrification. We believe if you decarbonize buildings, provide clean energy to those buildings, that you will have an efficient energy system that's healthy, that's clean, and affordable for New Yorkers. As the New York Policy Director, I'm focused on New York. I'm an attorney licensed in New York. This litigation was brought by the national and state builders associations, the national and state propane associations, and the natural gas workers unions. So it's really the stakeholders that benefit from the status quo. And we all kind of know what the status quo is. Energy costs are very high in New York. Now, the governor consented to the delay of the All Electric Buildings Act. As Liz talked about, the AG was fighting against this injunction last month. New York State already won this case back in July, and the builders and fossil fuel companies would have had a very high burden in order to be granted an injunction. They would have to show irreparable harm, that there would be a substantial likelihood of success on the merits on the case that they just lost in July. But the governor ceded all of those burdens and just gave in to the industry and consented to the injunction. Now, the builders and these interests have launched a large-scale campaign to stop the transition to clean, affordable energy because it impacts their profits and it would create a precedent that could move across the country. So this was the biggest fight for them, not regardless of the impacts that would benefit New Yorkers. New York, again, facing high energy costs. Our gas infrastructure is old and dirty, decades old. A large portion of it is old. Much of this infrastructure costs New Yorkers a ton of money to maintain because it's leak-prone pipe. And then you either have to pay a lot of money to maintain it or pay an even more amount of money to replace it. And if we're going to be replacing infrastructure, we should be replacing that infrastructure with clean, affordable, efficient infrastructure. The gas infrastructure, the underground infrastructure, is the most expensive type of energy infrastructure. So why are we investing New Yorkers' monies in the most expensive type of energy that's dirty, expensive, obsolete, when we can do much better? And that's what the lawmakers and the governor signed on for. And that's what we were on the precipice of moving towards. So this is just ridiculous. And propane and oil, even more dirty and even more expensive. New York being one of the highest consumers of fuel oil in the country. So those, a quarter of homes being heated through delivered fuels, are paying the most amount of money for the dirtiest types of fuel. Now, this law was incremental. It was moving one step at a time. And it said new construction represents less than 1% of New York's building stock. Half of New York's new construction happens in New York City, where they've already electrified their buildings. So we were talking about half of the new construction in the state. And that is a very small percentage of buildings, but an important percentage for changing what we're doing with our energy infrastructure. Developers, architects, engineers, owners, tenants, all of them from New York City who have these all-electric buildings, they love it. It's going great. And there's no question, like Juan Pablo said, that the electric grid can handle this first phase of the All-Electric Buildings Act. There's a reserve margin between our peak demand and our capacity of 8,000 megawatts. The first phase of the All-Electric Buildings Act would have been 10 to 20 megawatts for getting that first phase. Out of an 8,000, that first year would have been 10 to 20 megawatts. So it's just, there's more than enough capacity. The NISO in its report doesn't even dispute that. They say that they can handle this. They only talk about long-term focusing. And I'll just end by saying that, the COCPA, gas customers are paying between 0.5% to 1.2% for CLCPA implementation. The vast bulk of what they're paying for is actually the delivery costs associated with maintaining that gas infrastructure. And I'll just say the NISO is a private, not-for-profit organization that is controlled. Its board of directors is controlled by status quo owners and operators of power generators that currently are in control of our infrastructure, that we're asking to transition away from the status quo to a cleaner infrastructure. So that is the NISO. And, we need to remember that they have their own priorities. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Just a few more advocates to go, and then we will open it up for questions. I would now like to introduce another tremendous ally, Keanu Arpels-Hohozaya, the lead organizer for Fridays for Future NYC.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Eric. My name is Keanu Arpels Josiah. I'm one of the lead organizers of youth-led climate justice organization, Fridays for Future NYC. And I'm on my way traveling to the UN climate talks in Belém today, so bear with me for any background noise. Today and this week, Governor Hochul has made a choice. She has chosen to sell out our future, our communities, and clean air for continued investments in the fossil fuel industry, for continued investments in dirty energy. And so billionaires continue to spike our costs for New York families seeking to find affordability across the state and across the city. The All Electric Buildings Act is a simple common sense measure that says we need to not invest in the destruction of our city. The All Electric Buildings Act is a simple common sense measure that says we want affordability. And with her approval of the All Electric Buildings Act, it joins a long list of signals from Governor Hochul where she is showing clearly that she wants an industry and a state that continues to push forward energy and affordability at the expense of our climate goals and at the expense of our communities. Last summer was one of the hottest on record, yet it will maintain to be one of the coolest for the rest of my generation's lives. Every time we go to school and it's raining, our schools flood, our streets flood. That is the New York City our generation is living in, and that is the future that we are inheriting, and it is going to keep worsening as we continue new investments in fossil fuels. In 2021, the International Energy Agency, a pretty conservative agency in the international energy space, made loud and clear that we cannot continue new investments in fossil fuels if we want to have any semblance of climate action, if we didn't want to get to where we have gotten this month in hitting the 1.5 degree target of warming globally, and if we wanted to have a livable future for our communities where we're not seeing continued climate catastrophe. When we hit these treacherous targets, when we hit these treacherous tipping points, the choice is, what do we want to do for our communities? The choice is, do we want to continue to make a crisis that's turning our future into flames worse, or do we want to stand up for affordability and for a livable future? And Governor Hochul, with her decision to blatantly ignore the All Electric Buildings Act, with her decision to approve the disastrous and costly $3.2 billion Williams-Nessie pipeline, with her decision to side with crypto interests, with her decision to fast track Iroquois pipeline back in February. The list goes on and on. Her decision to blatantly ignore the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and court decisions, making it clear that she's in blatant violation of the law. Her decision to hold on so long in signing the 100-foot rule. Her decision to continue our investments in fossil fuel subsidies to the tune of over $1 billion every year. And her decision to hold the release of the regulations for cap and invest in New York State. Governor Hochul has made it clear that she cares about the interests of fossil fuel billionaires bankrolling her campaigns, and not with the future and an affordability that is so central to my generation and New Yorkers across the state. She claims climate leadership. She claims to be standing up to Trump, and she claims to be centering affordability. If she cares about these things, why is she tearing apart our law? Why is she tearing apart our future? It's time for us to set the record clear. Governor Hochul is a climate disaster. We deserve leadership that fights for our communities, for our future, not leadership that continues to advance the interests of fossil fuel billionaires at the expense of a future our generation can afford to live in.